Is there any body part you want to work on next?
Well, now I want to work on my hamstring, or maybe I should go easy on it since it got a little bit of attention there, huh?
Hamstring? No. If that's what you feel needs a little work. What I do for hamstrings, probably the most would be just take one of the legs and put it out forward there. Right now I've got my right leg out, but of course you can do this from either side. This one I just call the leg out tripod, because again, this tripod seems to be a fairly powerful metaphor that your body can understand and use to reject unnecessary tightness. And again, with the right leg out, the left hip is probably going to be the one that's on the ground. If you want to try just adjusting a little bit to see if your right hip will touch the ground. If it's not, mine says no, it's not going to happen.
If I can lean back like this with both hands behind me, yeah. But should both hands kind of be straddling my left knee a little bit?
That's a good point. Yeah, you can have it down on the floor there. Either way is fine. So we're kind of going to be moving between different positions that put weight in different locations in order to vary the stretch a lot. Because one thing about these stretches is, if you stay in one position and after a couple of breaths, nothing feels like it's moving. It just kind of feels tight and is just kind of staying in place. That should be a sign that, hey, you need to adjust your parameters a little bit so that you can get some movement happening. Let's start out kind of leaning to the left side so that you can feel that tripod of your two hands and the left hip, and the right hip might be up in the air a little bit at this point, and that's okay.
Yeah, the right is a little bit up in the air.
Yeah, and that's all right. Now see if you can kind of just use your hands to kind of balance your weight between those 3 points of the tripod. Find it kind of helps to reinforce that those are the only places that need to be tight. If you kind of just gently shift by pushing your hands in, you don't want to use your hip really to push in, because then you're getting your lower body involved. But between the two hands, you can kind of shift the weight around and see if you can find a real gentle balance between those three. How does that feel?
I think I found the spot that's good.
Okay, cool. And now with this one though, we can start to bring our awareness a little bit to that right heel where we've also got some of the weight. The weight probably, if our tripod is well balanced, it's probably not much. It's just going to be our right leg is the only weight that'll be on that heel there. Do you feel that?
Yeah, the right leg has some weight on it, the heel.
Okay, cool. But you probably don't feel much of a stretch in your hamstring there yet, do you?
No.
No, me either. Okay, so that's good. We want to stretch the hamstring. Start out by not feeling any stretch in it. A lot of people like to jump right into a deep stretch so you feel it right away. For me, it's all about getting relaxed. And then as that stretch comes on, gently trying to relax the real early stages of tightness that come into that hamstring. So we're going to do that by first getting a little hamstring stretch by pushing. I'm using my left hand, the one that's behind me here, and pushing it into the floor. Again, telling my middle section of body that wants to get involved. Doesn't have to do anything. It's just along for the ride. It wants to kind of pull inward and almost tighten up like I'm holding back from going to the bathroom. It's one important point is that it's good to use the bathroom before you start stretching, because those muscles that hold in your pee or your poo, those are going to contribute to your lower body tension. We don't want that.
Yeah.
We want them to be able to let go. And of course, if you got to let go when you really got to pee, then you've got problems. All right, and now as you push in with that left hand, I'm feeling more weight coming onto that right heel. Do you feel that?
Yeah. I changed my arm position a little bit. Yeah, I do. Before
Okay.
it felt like I was stretching the hamstring, but I had most of the weight on the left hand still. But I moved my left hand closer towards my butt, and now I can push it better. And yeah, I'm getting that hamstring stretch. My right heel feels more pressure.
Okay. Where do you feel most of the tightness right now? Is it in the hamstring or anywhere else?
I wouldn't say tension. I feel like my torso's relaxed, but it feels awkward. It feels kind of screwed, like or bent.
Bent? Okay.
My wrong leg.
Okay, that again, that you should think of that as tension. Because your body and your mind might not realize the unnecessariness of that. And it might, you kind of might go to that position of, oh, it's just doing a little work, or it's been in that position for too long. All that, it's just another way of saying unnecessary tension.
Okay.
As I push down a little bit on that left hand, I feel more weight in my right heel, and I also feel my right, kind of my lower back hip area all along here tightens up a little bit. I don't know if you feel that.
I kind of feel a pinch under my right shoulder blade.
Okay. Again, if you want to adjust a little bit for that, you don't have to worry too much about upper body tightness coming in. Again, we're using our upper body's strength to let the lower body relax. So it's okay if we feel a little tightness in the upper body.
I just moved my arm a little bit. It's a little bit better.
Yeah.
It's hard when you ask me to identify tension. I can be a little sensitive and just call out everything.
Yeah, and that's great. Call out what you feel, and I can help you make adjustments mentally as to what you should be thinking of this tension as. Because a lot of this stretching technique is truly just mental. If you reform your thoughts into a way that can let you release some of this tension, it can be super helpful. But for me, I think I'm too tight in my right hip to get much of the hamstring stretch that we're going for here. But if you're feeling it hamstring, that's great.
Yeah, I was able to relax just now and move my right butt cheek down a little bit. I kind of stopped caring about keeping my torso so straight. A lot of the time, because in boot camp and a lot of the places I've been, they tell you to stand up super straight and maybe even a little too erect. And when I try to do stretches or jogging, I always try to keep this really super inline, perpendicular, ergonomic position. But it's okay to bend a little bit, I guess. So once I let my torso bend a little bit and relax, I was actually able to let everything settle, like my right butt cheek a little bit.
That's good. Yeah, and you always want to think of that is, what am I telling myself to do that I'm not supposed to be telling myself to do? And your example is perfect with, I keep feeling like I should keep this straight. And our goal is to take that out of our minds and say, hey, that's unnecessary. We don't need to do that. But first you've got to feel it and you've got to think it. But if you convince yourself, hey, all my weight is only on 3 places, and then you got to convince yourself that you won't fall over as long as there's weight on those 3 places, you can kind of realize that, oh, hey, maybe, I'm probably pulling in a bit on my abs to straighten up. Mark didn't tell me to pull in on my abs to straighten up. Why am I doing that? And the answer, of course, is unnecessary tension. So now, what we're going to do is to get a little more weight onto that right heel, get a little more hamstring stretch. So I'm going to push in a little bit with that left hand more. I'm going to go all the way up to my fingertips so that that area is as long as possible. And I'm going to try and relax that right hip, which wants to get involved here. Tell it, hey, you're not doing anything here. Why are you tightening? That
The more I
mirror may
push,
not happen
the
for you.
harder it is to let weight fall into my right hand. I want to kind of put my right hand behind me now, but
Yeah, you're probably not going to be able to get weight onto your right hand with this one.
Okay.
What we're effectively doing is pushing weight so it's on your left hip and your right heel, using that left hand to push it into there. And then your right hand might help. It's not going to have weight, but it might just help you balance a little bit. Just kind of an extra little thing. And so now your weight is off your left hand and you can walk it forward a little bit, kind of cross over. Ooh, my right hip is up to about a 6 or a 7 in tightness right there. But I do feel a little bit of hamstring. What do you feel right there?
I don't know. I feel red lights going off everywhere. My right hip.
Yeah.
I feel like my torso feels a little awkward.
Yep, that's a tough position for me too right there. So I'm only going to stay there for a little bit. And then I'm going to see what I can do to walk my right hand out to the side here. The tighter you are in the initial pose, the less room you're going to have to walk around and adjust your lower body positioning. And that's so tight, I'm going to have to move my left hand back almost right away because I can't hold that for very long. And I use poor words when I say I can't hold that for very long, but my body wants to hold it. It wants to tighten up, and I can't tell it to let go. So I have to move out of that. Our goal in these stretches is usually to move as slowly as possible, but recognizing that sometimes slowly means tighter. And if it does, then feel free to kind of just jump past a tight section to get back to a more relaxed area. It's good to visit those tight areas once in a while, but you don't want to live there. Stretching shouldn't be about those level 6, 7, 8 tight areas. You might just go by there just to say, hey, how you doing? What are you up to? But I kind of pass through them and get back to that, level 0 to 2. So you can really relax. And sometimes just that feeling, that relaxing, that going from a high level to a low level tightness is enough to release a little bit there. All right, and I need to move my right hand back to rest a little bit, the muscles that are going there. But we can do these just kind of as a little circle, or more like an arc. So our goal is to get shoulder rotation with respect to the hips, like that, but doing it slow enough so that when our lower body starts to help out and try and do some of that rotation for us, we can tell it to let go before it gets too tight. That's basically what this stretch is about. How's that feeling?
Good. I feel a little fatigue in my left wrist, but it's good.
That's okay. These stretches, these two we done, can also be a decent wrist stretch. I used to get a lot of fatigue in my wrist as well. But if you kind of adjust your mental thinking a little bit, your wrist, when you're bent like that, it wants to get these muscles involved here and, force that bend. But if you think of it as, okay, my hand doesn't exist here. If you want to get onto the palm of your hand, all you really need is from your shoulder to your wrist. And it can be kind of like your hand, if it didn't exist, you don't need any weight on it. Everything is on that wrist. It might sound like, oh, that's going to be hard on my wrist and tiring on the wrist. But really, no, your wrist doesn't have to do anything. Your wrist becomes the foot. A foot of a tripod doesn't have to do any work to be a foot. It's just taking the weight at its center point. If you think of your wrist taking your weight similarly, you can kind of get your hands out of doing some of that work. Now, of course, if you have to go up onto your fingertips or up on your middle part of your hand there, that may be harder to do because your hand does have to do a little bit of work.
Maybe two points I noticed that really helped was like micro adjustments. You know how like when you've got a reticle and you're trying to line it up to a target and you're slowly lining it up and then you finally nail it on the dot, kind of like those engineers on the street with those tripods and those cameras trying to line up trajectories to make it level. Those micro adjustments to get that perfect spot, that's kind of what I had to do to get the point where I didn't have any tension. I was trying to mirror your position way too accurately and it was messing up my body. I needed to move with my specific body sizes and proportions and try to just kind of mirror it, but do it in my way.
Yeah.
The micro adjustments. Because if I just sit there in that one spot trying to do what you do without actually doing the micro adjustments, I'm going to feel way too much tension where I shouldn't be and not really explaining the parts that are appropriate during the proper stretch. And then the other one, and then the other one is the releasing torso. I think everybody, not everybody, me and my mom for sure, have a certain tightness in our stomach area. Like I try to hold it in. I don't try to suck it in, but I don't let it go out naturally in a deep breath, especially. So what helped me in that stretch was just to say, okay, I'm going to try to make myself look as fat as possible when I'm breathing and just let it out. And it really released a lot of tension in my back and everything. So yeah, people really try to hold their stomach in, I think. And especially in public situations when you're stretching in front of someone. So that's a key one to let go.
Yeah. This Australian guy that I'm kind of using as a mentor from afar. He does this technique called stretch therapy. And that's the biggest thing I've learned from him so far is when you think you've released everything and you're not tight, look again at your belly. Because a lot of times we hold tension there and you can't feel it. And unless you actually tell specific parts of your belly to let go and be loose, it'll just be tight and you might not even notice. And when you do, that allows so many of the connected muscle areas to release. So that's great that you notice that too.